David Sanger, welcome to the Cipher Brief studio. It's nice to have you here.
Great to be with you, Suzanne.
I'm wondering, what are the big themes this year? It's been a busy news weekend with the announcement of the death of Alexei Navalny in Russia, but what are the big themes that are emerging overall from the conference so far?
Well, if you compare this to 2 years ago, Suzanne, that's when Zelensky was here and declared that he did not believe Russia would really invade. And the European diplomats, intelligence officials who you see wandering around behind me here, they didn't believe he would either. They all were saying, no, it's a bluff. Last year, when they were here, Zelensky did not show up, but many people thought Ukraine was on the verge of kicking Russia out of Ukraine entirely. And it would be a huge victory for NATO and a humiliation for Putin. This is the year of Putin's revenge. He's doing better in Ukraine. The Ukrainians themselves are running low on ammunition, in part because the United States Congress has not been able to come to a conclusion on whether it's going to issue $60 billion more in aid. And Putin, of course, as you just said, was responsible either directly or indirectly for the death of Navalny, all of which is Putin saying, I can do what I want. And I think what you're hearing here is a deep concern among the Europeans that at the moment of maximum challenge from Putin, they're worried about whether the United States is still with them in a big way.
Unfortunately, President Zelensky's message is exactly the same this year, that he doesn't need a ride, he needs ammunition. They still need ammunition. I'm curious, what is the mood among the European leaders there, David, about sort of the state of mind of candidate Donald Trump and some of the comments he's been making about NATO? Are they worried about a Trump presidency?
Oh, they clearly are. But you know what's really interesting to me, Suzanne, and I've been living in Europe for the past two and a half months, just on a temporary assignment from the Times. Before Trump made that statement, they were worried about what would happen in a second Biden administration because they were concerned that Congress was just not going to spend the kind of money that it has spent until now on Ukraine and so forth. After the Trump statement, they were worried about whether NATO would be around if Trump got reelected or whether it would be picked apart. I mean, by inviting a foreign power to attack a NATO nation and saying you might not come to their defense, that would essentially be the dismantlement of NATO. So I think that the nervousness is pretty high and understandable. But at the same time, you can also say to the Europeans, I think say fairly, that they were sitting around thinking, you know, if they just reach 2% of their GDP in defense spending, all the pressure would be off of them. The fact of the matter is they may have to do many times multiples of that, and they don't want to confront that reality.
Interesting to see that happen. Two big things I'm wondering. Are people talking about China, and are they talking about cyber?
They are talking about China a lot. And I would say that the meeting that Secretary Blinken had with Wang Yi, his counterpart, was more of a kind of normal diplomacy than we have seen with China in a long time. Remember, a year ago was when the balloon incident happened and things were pretty tense. I think the meeting between President Biden and Xi Jinping got things at least temporarily on a more stable phase. I don't think it's going to last that way, because it rarely does. But for now, that's looking a little bit better. The long-term competitive issues with China still make them here quite nervous.
Yeah. Final question for you. Any wild card moments during the conference there, things that you didn't expect?
The appearance of Navalny's widow on the stage an hour and a half after we knew that he had died was emotional. It was remarkable. It was sad. And she had been here and I think had been planning to speak to the group about working to win his release. And instead she was here on news of his death.
Any indication that his death might not be obviously it's not in vain. He's already inspired a number of people to come out on the streets, but any indication that his death might lead to some kind of action out of this group that's meeting in Munich?
Not really. And, I thought it was interesting. President Biden several years ago said if Navalny died, there would be serious consequences for Russia. We haven't heard what those would be. And frankly, at this moment, name a sanction that hasn't been enacted or evaded.
Yeah. David Sanger joining the Cipher Brief live from Munich. Thank you so much for being here, David.
Thank you. Great to be with you.